Welcome to the Queenvest Longevity Masterclass. I am very excited about this conversation to explore the realities of new aging, new lifespan, and how to make sure that our lifespan turns into health span and what I call well span or wealth span. There is a lot to discuss, and I got interested in this topic as I myself approach 50 and I'm looking at this a new phase of my life and starting to think what it will be like and what is ahead for me. What should I expect? What should I prepare for and plan for? Which, as a planner, is where my emphasis is so that I can both help myself and others. And I was so excited to meet Nicole Christina, who I came across through her amazing podcast, which called Zestful Aging. Nicole signifies what this new retirement is, and she is one of the trailblazers of it. I, I will introduce Nicole really briefly, and then we'll get into this a conversation. Zestful Aging podcast is a multi-award winning interview show heard in 106 countries. More than 350 interviews strong, Nicole Christina's guests are change makers from a variety of disciplines: filmmakers, writers, advocates, poets, musicians, scientists, athletes, and entrepreneurs, many of whom are top experts in their fields. She calls herself the Terry Gross of aging well. Nicole is the author of the book Not Just Chatting: How to Become a Master Podcast Interviewer. And I can attest to that she has achieved that. She's a
Aw.
contributor to the online magazine Crunchy Tales: Smart Stories for Late Bloomers. And the podcast is also broadcast on public radio. As importantly, after more than 30 years as a psychotherapist, Nicole created Zestful Aging Coaching, providing support to women who are seeking to incorporate more zest in the second half of their lives. And the podcast has won multiple awards, and we will have information both on the podcast and also how to get in touch. And we'll speak about it towards the end of the recording. But in the meantime, Nicole, welcome to the
Thank
Queenvest
you.
Longevity Masterclass. And
And you're one of the experts that I've spoken to. So I'm excited to air that because you do such a beautiful job helping people plan financially, especially women over 50.
yes, that's definitely a topic that's near and dear to me. But what I'd love to start it with is, what is zestful aging?
That's a question I get a lot. And I think zestful aging is courageously engaging with our lives over 45 or 50, somewhere in that range, even though it can be scary because we have this interesting situation, many of us. It's almost like a blank slate. And a blank slate has so much room for potential and experimentation and fun, but it also can be very intimidating. So that's, in a nutshell, is sort of riding that fine line of what can I try? What else do I want to do? What legacy do I want to leave? But also like, wow, I'm no longer primarily a parent or maybe even a partner or maybe even an employee or now I'm a caregiver. So our roles change dramatically, and that leaves room, but it also can leave anxiety.
Definitely. I so identify with these change in roles. When you go from being so busy being a parent and being just in the trenches, never having time for yourself. And all of a sudden, I find myself with plenty of time and thinking about, well, how do I fill this time and how do I fill it in a way that's enjoyable for me?
Perfect.
Did
That's
you?
it.
Did you find that? Did you hit that point? And what were some of the thoughts that you had? And what were some of the actions that you started to take at that point?
Well, I'm still working on it. It's something in progress. I got to play a lot more tennis, which I love, but that's really not enough for me. So I took up pickleball, and that's really fun. I'm going to be doing some more traveling, and I'm going to be hiking a part of the Camino in northern Spain with my tennis friends coming up pretty soon. But I don't think that's enough either. I'm still doing a trial and error kind of experimentation of, I may have 30 or 40 years left. What's a life worth living? And that's a question I think that's not answered over a weekend. And then you say, okay, now I know. I think these things evolve. And there really is this trial and error and sort of tweaking. And I'll give you just a silly little example. I'm a big knitter and I really love knitting. And so I thought maybe I'll try a different craft in this sort of idea of what else do I like. So my friend invited me to a class where you make these little wool gnomes that if anybody's ever seen, they make them in Iceland. They're really cute. And I thought, oh, that's really precious. So I said, yes, let me go to this class. Well, it turns out that to make these things, you get a big fluffy piece of, it's called roving, and all you do is you poke, 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 and this action shrinks the wool down and you kind of make shapes with it. And of course, people get very good at it and it's beautiful. But I thought to myself, this can't be it. I can't be just sitting and poking. That is not going to do it for me. And also, it's a very sharp needle. And once or twice, I made a hole in my finger.
Ouch.
And I thought to myself, and it was lovely because I was with my friend and there were all these new people and the teacher was lovely. And I thought to myself, I'm never coming back here because this is not interesting enough. I mean, with knitting, I have to be really concentrating because there's patterns and there's kind of this poke, 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 not for me. Now, some people make the most beautiful things, but that's an example, a little example of trial and error. It was in the ballpark. I like crafty stuff, I like arty stuff. Never going back there. And so it's a matter of real experimentation. And one of the things that I've been quite struck by is my clients who are also getting older. So they may be in retirement or planning for retirement. Their kids have moved, maybe their partner is doing something else. Say to me, I'd really like to try photography because I used to love photography. And I said, well, that's a great thing. Let's think together about what that would look like. Are there groups? How would you do this? And they say, oh, no, I don't know these other people. That would be really
Mhm.
awkward. And the answer is yes, it is awkward. It is uncomfortable to start reaching out in different aspects of your life that you haven't already gotten comfortable in. So what I want to say to people is when you're doing these little trial and errors, expect it is going to be awkward. And I can tell you as a psychotherapist, the dirty little secret is everybody's anxious and everyone's feeling awkward. You guaranteed. So I want to just set the expectation that it's not all like, oh, this is so easy, so lovely. I'm going to try this group, then I'm going to try this group, and then this book group, then this travel group, and then this whatever. Expect it to be a little anxiety provoking because it's brand new.
It is so interesting that you said that. And what it reminds me of is when the kids were younger, it was so easy to make friends with the kids' friends' parents.
Yes.
And you went to activities and it was pretty natural. It was still awkward because social situations can be always, right? You're just standing there at the sidelines of a game, how you talk to people. but now my kids barely are there, except they really need me. So yeah, it is okay. Now I have to myself out there again, go into unknown and, to your point, uncomfortable situations, learning new skills. So it almost seems to me like it's a new area of growth also, because you need to focus on just being more comfortable with yourself and being more at ease with this um, a place in your life where, hey, I'm going out, I'm going to try things, I'm going to put myself out there, but also be wanting to still learn a new skill or a new hobby or something that will make your life interesting. So, you also mentioned that it's 30 to 40 years that our lifespan is still ahead of us, which is fantastic. And that is one of the issues or sort of aspects of retirement that the MIT Age Lab is focusing on. They
Mhm.
call it 8,000 days. And later on, we will have a discussion about that, but it hit me that 8,000 days, it's almost 20 years. And if I look back at the 20 years of my life from where I'm sitting now, that's basically my entire adulthood. There is so much that
Mhm.
happened in those 8,000 days. So if I look ahead and there is that much of a life to be lived, then there are so many aspects of it. There is health, there is work, there is where you live, how you get around, and all of these aspects of life that all of a sudden need to be planned. And health to me is one of the most important things, because there isn't much you can do when you're not healthy. So you probably arrive into your 50s at some point of um, health. Hopefully you're productive and you're active and whatnot. But I'd love to talk a little bit about sort of being healthy. What do you do to stay healthy? What are
Mhm.
some of the sort of reality myths versus a reality on how you feel when you're aging?
That's a great
Yeah,
question,
yeah.
and it's one I think about a lot. I just wanted to offer a resource to people on the last subject of friendship. Before we talk about health, there's a book called Platonic, and it's written by a researcher who apparently was really struggling with making adult friendships. So she threw herself into the research. She's a professor now. I found it absolutely illuminating. It's a paperback book. It's not a really hard read, but the research is so amazing, and it highlights something you said. Well, I'm standing on the sidelines, and now there's no sidelines. Proximity is one of the biggest ways, of course, that we make friends, neighbors,
Mhm.
all of this stuff. So she talks a lot about how do you have proximity, and just I'll give you the little bit of the Reader's Digest. You have to go to classes or events that meet more than one time. You don't just go to an art opening and think that, oh, now I'm going to have new friends. It has to be
Gotcha.
repeated. So I thought that was great advice. I would totally recommend that book. I love the question of health because we get so much conflicting information, and it's really difficult to parse out what I should be following, how rigid I should be. Now, let me say to you that the experts that I have spoken to in the field, that are the super duper experts, say the things that you must focus on are sleep,
Mhm.
exercise, and social. We're mammals. We have to be interacting, and it doesn't have to be with someone who we're pouring our heart out. It could be the mail carrier, the person making your coffee. These all count. Um, I think, and this sort of leads into my expertise of eating disorders at midlife, but the idea that you can never eat an Oreo again, or should never look at white flour, or you'll give yourself a chronic illness, really sets us up to fail. And what I'd like to say to you is something that one of my guests said, that I just love the simplicity. She said, let's start with the basics. no processed foods as much as we can avoid, cut down on sugar, and take a walk. And I thought, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard because they're not saying you can only eat this many carbs and measure and protein and not protein and this and that. It's enough to draw it increases anxiety and takes the joy out of eating. So if you are eating non preservative laden foods that don't have SKU code, that aren't in a box. You're preparing whole foods. There's so much controversy over you should eat meat, you shouldn't eat meat. I'm telling you, I'm talking to the people who write these books and they don't even agree with each other. Some say
Correct.
you have to eat red meat because it is so nutritious. Other people say, oh my goodness, that's like blasphemy. I would say mostly eat what you enjoy, get the highest quality you can, including like your treats. We have a artisan bakery down the street from us, and we don't eat a lot of sugar and a lot of junk, but we had been hiking and I really thought, oh boy, something nice in there. So yesterday I stopped and we each got a little pastry, enjoyed it over the top, and today, I'm not going back there. I have other things to do. So it's really, in my mind, about having a reasonable and well-rounded and holistic approach. The I think the thing that gets really tricky is that we have an anxiety about getting ill and mortality. And there's this little idea that if I only drink kale smoothies, my life will, I'll never get sick. I'll never, well, unfortunately, that's not true. And we can do a lot and we can make lifestyle changes for sure, but we can avoid eventually our demise because we all die. And I think that that's something, unfortunately, that we have to accept. Now, the same with exercise. I'm someone who loves exercise, loves movement, but I am out there, I'm walking, I'm enjoying nature, I'm not counting my steps. In a way that's, how shall I say, compulsive. It's like I'd like to do 4 miles today, for example. And if I get close or I go over, that's fine. I love the mini tramp, which is called a rebounder. It's great for older people because it's really lovely on your joints. Not that many people, it's not sort of top of mind, but if people like to Google rebounder benefits, you will be amazed at what that's all about. I'm in upstate New York. It's often sleeting, so I have to exercise inside. It's a lot of fun. I would just say don't get a cheap one because those are bound to break and not be great for you. If in the resources you want me to give some names of ones that, basically don't buy anything under $200, I think. But I found that to be really wonderful. And you can add weights to it, but it's fun and it's not drudgery and it's about being zestful, not punishing yourself.
Yes, I love that idea of, yeah, not punish yourself. It's funny to me. I was thinking the other day how food is such a big deal to us as humans. Animals eat, they eat every day, right? They know what to eat. They
And
just
children too.
children
Children.
too. Yes, if we don't make them be guilty about it. And it's only humans who wrap so much into the food. There is culture, there is faith, there is identity, there is all sorts of things. And yeah, I love that, the fact that, you know what, you can enjoy a little dessert if you're overall healthy.
Mhm.
And you're eating reasonably well, there is no reason to go to extremes, because first of all, they never work.
That's right.
And second of all, is what's the point? You load up your life with too much guilt. I feel like it's especially true with women. We always
Mhm.
push ourselves. We always feel pressure from society, from friends, from all these things that we read, and we can never win. There is always something that we are not doing right. So just giving yourself a little bit of a break and just being healthy and doing common sense things is definitely, it definitely resonates with me. So thank you for that. Now we didn't touch upon sleep. That's one thing that comes and goes depending how much you have on your mind. I would love to be more rested, but it's just all, sometimes
Mm,
you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and then you can't get to
yeah.
bed or something. Have you found in your research or guests or anything that they would recommend for either an evening routine or any tips on how to get better sleep, or how many hours of sleep do you need
Mm.
as you get into your 60s and beyond? Is it more? Is it less? Is it the same?
It is,
What?
as you say, can be a little problematic, and I'm seeing that as well. Um, I'm not an expert, but I'll tell you what I can offer this. There's a woman who was a guest of mine, and her name's I think it's Molly McGowan, and her whole podcast is about sleep, and the name is "Sleep is a Skill." I don't know, there's varying ideas about what's helpful. What I do know are some basics, which is cool room. You want, even when it's cold out, I crack the windows. So you want a cool room and you want it to be pitch black. So I had these lovely curtains that were so willowy and pretty. And I thought, when the moon's out, my room is, pretty light. So I switched those out and I got some heavier curtains. I think that really works. Um, I'm not a sleep expert, but I do pay attention to, I know that if I start getting into reading or a knitting pattern or whatever, I'm in Pinterest or something, and I look up and it's after 11, that's not really ideal for me. And I know, the way I feel. So, I think that deserves more attention. And I would check out either on my podcast, Sleep is a Skill, or just go right to her. That's all she does. She interviews all the experts on sleep studies, and she had had such a bad time sleeping that
Mm.
it started impacting her mental health, and
Oh,
she
wow.
got there. Yeah, she actually changed careers to research sleep because it had been such a problem for her. So I would suggest people take a look at her work.
Oh, yes, that's a very good suggestion. I will make sure that all the resources, all the wonderful resources you're mentioning are available. And that definitely, well, it's a lesson to me as well. What I've tried to do is not have my phone next to my bed, because I feel like that's the biggest distraction. You'll turn around and it's like, oh, what time is it? And the bright light will ruin your sleep, or
For
somebody.
sure. It's so tempting, my iPad's so cute and it's so light, and I can just sort of check one more thing. Did this person get back to me? And it's always a bad idea.
Yeah, so we touched upon the big ones: sleep, um, social, and what was the third one?
Exercise?
Exercise. So we touched on all those things. So if you look at the overall sort of your life, what are some of your goals, and what are some of your challenges, that, or say same with your guests or your friends? What are some of your top, yes, goals and challenges at this age, that you can share with us?
I've been really thinking hard about this, because my life is it's very more quiet, and it seems quite lovely, and there's a lot of goodness in it. And so I'm in this tug of war of, why don't I just accept that I have a lot of stuff I like. I love the podcast. I have trips planned, but there's this tension of, is that enough? And I think people, particularly, I'm thinking of one woman, she's walking with us in May, but this tension of like, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want to leave behind? And for people, and I think probably, Rosanna, you're one of them, who have been um, interested in accomplishment and working and being good at your job, and ambitious. I'll just say that, I've been ambitious and that's been a good thing, but I'm really at this crossroads of, is that striving about a healthy ambition? Like, oh, there are more things, there's more fun things, there's more good challenges, or not just being able to enjoy the goodness that exists. So that's something, and I'm gonna actually be trying a new group with some knitting friends that's a Buddhist group. So maybe they
Oh.
can give me some direction in non-striving and being more kinda happy with what is here. I think my friends also, will ask, and this is a very common question, "Is this all there is? Is it enough?" However, I will say this, there's a famous book called The Five Regrets of the Dying, written by a woman in Scotland by the name of Bronnie Ware. She was a guest of
Mhm.
mine, and the number one regret of people at the end of their lives is that I shouldn't have worked so hard. So, I keep
Interesting.
that in mind, and across the board, it doesn't matter their class, their what they did, and they say, "I wish I would have spent more time with my loved ones." So, I keep that in the back of my mind that, like, when I'm taking a hike, like I will tomorrow with my friends and our dogs, maybe that's the gold, and maybe there's a appreciation for, wow, how fortunate I am to be able to do that. Do I really need to publish another book? Do I really need to be on a bigger podcast? All of these things. So that's the tension, and I think it's one that I've heard other women my age kind of struggle with.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a very big question, and I'm so glad that to hear that. Well, I guess on the one hand, I'm glad to hear that never ends. On the other hand, it's just interesting because, as you said, I am very go person. It's always
Yeah.
something new. It's always a new challenge. It's always something that keeps me motivated. So it's probably part personality, part also pressure. Then there is all the, everything that you're supposed to achieve and everything that everybody else has done. So where am I, right? And but then so some of it does give you satisfaction, but on the other hand, is what is it that you're missing? And I've been thinking a lot about it. Maybe it's the ability to really be able to compartmentalize your different selves in appropriate situations. Just when I find myself, if I'm with my daughter or with my son or with my husband, I really want to be present, so then it doesn't become about just time with somebody, but being there and really just enjoying somebody's company and being attentive to them and listening to them.
And
Um,
enjoying that moment, right? It's not only
mhm.
for them, which is very important, it's such a gift, but it's also brings so much richness to our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how they when you mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter if you say hi to mail delivery man or you have a really nice chat at the grocery checkout line, which doesn't happen nearly as often as it should. It's just that positive energy. It's just this social, just uplifting. One thing I've noticed a lot of times, if you just smile at strangers, it just completely changes like the energy around you and the energy of the person. I'm a big believer in our energy and spreading the good vibes and how they affect everybody. Um, so yeah,
That's so
that's a big.
interesting. I wanted to tell you that because I do the same thing, and when COVID was really bad, we had, of course, masks on, and I really missed that smiling at strangers in the grocery because they couldn't see. And I
Yes,
felt it was a
yeah.
loss, like, "Hey, hi, whatever, that's a nice pomegranate," or whatever, but that is exactly that joyful connection was, I could really I felt its loss when we were wearing masks all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times it's the little things that matter, right? It doesn't have to be this big, huge change or a big, huge shift in our lives to make us feel better. I think yet we were talking a little bit about that 1% incremental change that you can do in things to get better. So I'd love if you just expanded a little bit on this idea that just do everything a little better and the effect of that.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. I mean, that's really building you up for success. I mean, to say, tomorrow I'm not going to eat any white flour or white sugar, and I'm going to, run 10 miles, and then I'm going to do all this stuff. That is so not fun. So I would say if you have a goal, let's say of weightlifting, which is really great for women who are over 50, osteoporosis, muscle mass, all this stuff. I was a bit resistant to it because it sounds really boring to me. So, but I had this person on my podcast who described why we all, the muscle. Okay. So I have 2-pound weights. These things are like, nothing. You could carry them around all day. You wouldn't notice. But I started using them on my rebounder, which makes them feel heavier because you're dealing with gravity. This is not like, Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff. This is little. I am telling you, it has been really a fun addition, and it's a little challenge. And I think I've gotten little bit more toned arms. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So that's it. I mean, you really want to be patient with yourself. I'm also in my psychotherapy practice, I'm a big advocate of self-compassion practice.
Mhm.
And that's proven. Research has proven if you want to make a lifestyle change, it's not like you say, stop smoking, you dummy. It's much more of a self compassion kind of template on that, and much more helpful. So, yeah, the little things like if you're used to having 5 cups of coffee a day and you love coffee, but you think it's jazzing you up and you're not sleeping, I would just really slowly, almost, imperceptibly, just sort of move in the direction. And even in therapy, I will say to people, they'll say, I want to do this or that. I say, what is the smallest little of steps in that direction that you can make that's not overwhelming, but is still challenging? And so I
Mhm.
think that overall seems to work because people want to engage with that. They don't want to go on a cycle of, success, failure. That is not fun for anyone.
hmm Yeah, the idea, so the concept of incremental change is, I think it's very powerful. I was listening to a video about just motivation and
Mhm.
how our brain processes some tasks. Because if you put a task in front of you that's too big, your brain starts thinking about whether it's worth expending the energy on this task. And if you think that the task is too big, and you expect yourself to fail, your brain just starts to really resent having to spend energy on this task, and you get a lot of resistance and you get a lot of pushback from yourself, and then you just start resort to playing computer games if you're younger, or overeating, just because you've set yourself up for this big task and of the failure at the same time. So
Mhm,
I love
mhm.
the fact that, hey, you can make a little progress and have this feeling of success and then move on to the next little step, because success is. Then another thing I was reading that was fascinating to me is how we learn. We every time we learn something new, we take positive feedback and negative feedback. So when we have negative feedback, we adjust, and then our brain forgets the negative as a part of the skill, and just remembers the positive. And that's how you improve your skill set, which was, to me, I was like, oh, I see that. So giving yourself as many positive experiences you can give yourself, that adjustment is fantastic. Wow, I feel like we covered a lot of ground, and it's been a
I
very
We have, and I just wanna say one more thing. I mean, if you've gotten to this age, this is my belief, you've had some challenges. Life can be really brutal, And so I guess I feel like, to your point, why would you want to sort of beat yourself into submission? You must stop scrolling Facebook. No more Facebook. Throw the phone away, or no more coffee, or what, no more sugar, or whatever it is. I mean, life can be very, very hard. And I think that if we've gotten to this point, we want to be as positive and as encouraging and gentle as we possibly can, because we deserve that. Also, it's more likely to work. But that's what I was thinking when you were talking. Like, we've gotten to this age and we have had to be resilient. I don't know
Mhm.
anybody who's, over 45 who has had just smooth, smooth sailing, no grief, no loss, none of that. So I like to take that into consideration, that at our age, we have. Um, we've had to be resilient, and we've gone through hard times, and we'll go through more hard times, but we don't need to give ourselves the hard times.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful message. Yeah, we made it,
We made it. We
right?
made it.
We um, you know what, just to close, what I've loved to you've met so many fascinating women, you've met so many interesting people who've done some interesting things. So when you think of some of the guests that have been on your show, and just to give our listeners and our students just some ideas, like, well, it's never late to do something. What are some really just fascinating or interesting or out there ideas and things
Oh,
that
they're
people
out
have
there.
done
That's my
that have
that's my
stuck with
brand.
you?
That's my brand. Ruzanna is out there. Well, I'll tell you a story that I think, there's a lot of them, but I think people appreciate this one. I interviewed a woman who's an actress in Hollywood, and she was in a Netflix series and, won awards and all this stuff. And what she does for fun is she goes to the San Quentin Penitentiary, which has a reputation for being, I don't know if anybody, you can tour, but is it? No, that's Alcatraz. Sorry.
Sorry.
She goes to she lives in Northern California, and she teaches hospice skills, because inmates are aging and the system has no idea what to do with them. Like the guards and stuff, they don't know how to deal with death and dying. They don't know how to do with chronic illness. That's just not in their job description, right? But the whole system is aging. So she puts on her dark blue navy suit because she's so gorgeous. She has to make it herself as plain as possible. And this is what she does. And she said, I could go to the celebrity parties, but when I'm sitting with people and teaching them how to, I mean, I'm feeling emotional talking about it, how to take care of their cellmates who are terminal,
Mhm.
that's what makes my heart happy. And so, this is not someone, I interviewed her like 3 or 4 years ago, but that's really stuck with me. So it's the people who don't have to do these like hard, gritty jobs. That I have a woman who people find this fascinating. I shadowed her. She takes the pythons out of the Everglades because they're eating all the mammals. She does not
Wow.
have to work. Her husband is a partner in a big law firm in Miami. Every day at midnight, she goes out and she tries to
Mhm.
capture these 18 feet long pythons that, by the way, bite. And she
Yeah.
doesn't seem to have a problem with this. But I went along with her when I was in Florida, and I thought, here's a 62-year-old woman who could be whatever you do when you don't have to work, and she could be lounging. And she's such an environmentalist that she has so much love for the Everglades and the mammals in there. That's what she wants to do. So those are 2 examples I often use of, like, kinda head blow off, "I can't believe I get to talk to you," but there are many more, but those are the ones that, stand out right now.
Wow. I love the fact that we talked about that because to me, the most important thing in life to realize is there are no limits. You're never too old for anything. The
Mhm.
only limits in life is what you put on yourself. So the more you think freedom, the more you think, this is what I'm going to do. Who is it going to help? And how is it going to affect the world positively? You
Yes.
can pretty much do anything,
And that's
right?
it. I mean, the research is so clear. Something you just said is people want to be remembered for doing something. We all want to feel significant in some way. It doesn't mean we have to, you know, uh, do like create a new solar energy, but maybe it means putting a garden somewhere where there's not a garden, and that'll be our legacy. It seems that that makes people so happy in the later stage of life to say, I'm working for something. I'm never gonna see the end result, but I like knowing that my work will live on.
Yeah, it's our legacy,
That's our
definitely.
legacy.
Yeah. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for this. We will put the resources in the course. This course will be available in the academy for everyone to see, to get inspired, to get hope, to have confidence, and hopefully spur women to make some positive, amazing changes in their lives. So, thank you so much, Nicole.
It's been a blast. Thank you.